we have discussed basic interpersonal communication skills and cognitive academic language proficiency. Now we will be looking at some of the similarities and the differences these two models have. So let's see the comparison of these two models. So first of all, let's try to understand these two models with the help of this image. Now, cognitively undemanding. So this is basically BIGS, where you have a basic interpersonal communication skills which is not cognitively highly demanding. It relies on simple language, everyday structures, familiar topics. And then you have cognitively demanding. This is CALP, basically cognitive academic language proficiency area, which requires field-specific vocabulary, complex language structures, abstract concept, new ideas, and all these fall in the domain of academia. Now you see that horizontal axis of these two models represent a continuum from context embedded to context reduced, ranging from the situation in which maybe the learner uses external clues and information such as facial gestures, facial expressions, real objects, and pictorial representation to enable understanding, to the other extreme, where the learner must rely on linguistic cues and knowledge about language and text to understand meaning. So here you have a simpler version of communication leading to more complex version in terms of academic language proficiency. Here you have context embedded situation where your interaction and communication is supported by all the social factors, and here you do not find that social support in the form of facial expressions, gestures, nonverbal cues, or clues. The vertical axis relates to the degree of active cognitive involvement. So here we have already seen that the cognition is not too high as compared to this particular area, which requires more challenging and more complex tasks based on the cognition. So cognitively demanding area is cognitive academic language proficiency. Now with the help of this model, humans maybe tried to identify the areas that can help in identifying and developing appropriate tasks for bilingual pupils. For example, maybe in preparing of tasks for newly engaged bilingual students who are acquiring the second language, the teacher might start with some simplest version here and then move on to the more complex area here. Because this area, which is the upper left corner, is cognitively undemanding and context embedded, and such as face-to-face conversation or maybe just a small chit chat is appropriate for the beginner, but tasks in the lower right here are more complex and context reduced. Which actually lacks other supporting clues. Two dimensions that have been introduced by Jim Cummins. One is cognitive demanding communication and second is cognitive undemanding communication. So cognitive demanding communication basically takes into account more challenging tasks, and cognitive undemanding communication relies on simple, easy to understand type of communication. Now let's try to compare these two models and see what are the commonalities, similarities, or difference there are in these two models. Now let's try to first of all see what BIGS has. It says that language that is used in communication among friends or with strangers or in real communication about any and all aspects of life. So very social communication when you are having interaction with your friends or strangers, or maybe a real communication about any information, basic information or chit chat, that kind of language. To develop basic interpersonal communication skills, students must be provided with many opportunities, interactive tasks for role playing, language situations, and sophisticated social interaction. So, students must be provided with interactive tasks, communicative tasks for them to be engaged in any role play or any social interaction or communication which is sophisticated, where some formal setting is created. Now, BICS include idiomatic expressions and proverbs, sayings, and colloquial expressions. Knowledge of BICS is very important to feel comfortable and to use socially appropriate language in real life communication situation. So real life communication situation is emphasized, and the idea is that learners should be able to feel comfortable, to be able to interact comfortably with other people in a social environment, in a real life situation. In CALP, language that is used in the content areas, the language for high level critical thinking, for hypothesizing, for talking maths, chemistry, music, history, and health. So these are the academic content that we are talking about. A student is not proficient in English until she masters cognitive academic language proficiency. So this must be the language development focus of all instructional program. So this basically, according to Cummins, should be the focus of all the teachers or the curriculum development, that they should enable the learners, in order to be proficient in a second language or in English, they should have this particular proficiency, which is cognitive language, academic language proficiency. To develop this, students must be provided with many opportunities to observe, listen to, and speak about content areas, concept in real life situations. So now this is the content specification or content specific interaction that is being emphasized here. In addition, students need to master reading and writing using CALP. Knowledge of CALP ensures academic success. Knowledge of CALP is essential for academic success and higher education and for critical thinking. Now, some of the suggested activities for CALP are writing story innovation, holding books, reviews, enacting plays, discussing what you have read, collecting words, conducting debates, selecting role play, presenting thematic views as proposed by Shande in 2012. And the suggested activities for basic interpersonal communication includes use of visual pictures, objects map, simplified language text, translation, gestures, pantomimes, experience demonstrations, and peer work or group work. So to conclude, interpersonal communication skills refer to the basic language ability required for face-to-face communication, where linguistic interaction are embedded in a situational context, which is called context embedded language, and cognitive academic language proficiency refers to higher order language skills that are essential for problem solving, inferring, analyzing, critical thinking, synthesizing, and predicting in decontextualized or reduced context.